Hello again, Chris Lee, your host at Southeastern 16. We're talking Auburn Final Four weekend, except this conversation is about Auburn baseball, which is going pretty well. For that, bring on a man who covers a lot of Auburn baseball, also covers the Braves. We won't speak of the second at the moment, but we will talk about Auburn. Lindsey, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Been a big fan, watch a lot of these shows. Excited to finally be on one of them. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And Lindsey, you do a lot of work with Auburn baseball. I didn't give you a great introduction off the jump, but just tell folks where they find you.
Yeah, I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. It's just coming on my fourth season covering Auburn baseball. I've done it for Sports Illustrated, done it for Athlon Sports, currently doing it with The Barn Auburn, which is part of the next round. So we have a weekly show, The Barn Baseball Show. It's me, former Auburn baseball legend and current pro player Sonny DeShera, and Brad Law from the Auburn radio broadcast team, a couple times a week talking about Auburn baseball. And then obviously on social media and on the Barn Auburn message board.
Well, let's talk the Tigers. Big picture so far this season feels like they are in the territory of where they need to be to get to most of their goals. I think you've got an elite class in the league where you got Tennessee, Arkansas, LSU, Georgia, maybe Texas, maybe not Texas. I could argue for or against. And you got that middle tier where Auburn is squarely positioned and in a good place. Regional hosting still on the table. What's the feeling around the program at this point of the season?
Having talked to a bunch of players for the show and just in person, having talked to Butch Thompson, the thought process here is they've got all the pieces. They've just got to put it together in the right order at the right time, right? And as of time of recording, I just finished talking to Butch Thompson for his weekly media availability, and he talked about we've had these great pitching performances on a weekend, but they're all in different games, right? We've never gotten the right order in the pitching plan to just pass the baton from guy to guy in a game. The offense, you were really strong early in the year, and a lot of it was powered by your upperclassmen and your studs, your senior Cooper McMurray at first base, Ike Irish, who's projected to be a first-round draft pick this year, shortstop Deric Fabian, a transfer out of Florida. And those guys have gotten a little bit cold with the exception of Irish in conference play, but your freshmen are doing really well. They just can't seem to all be hitting at the same time. And so the thought process is we're holding our own right now. You know, we're 4-5 in the conference, 20-9 overall. To your point, they still believe they absolutely are on track to host a regional if they handle their business, but they know they can do more. And so there's this competing sense of we're trying to understand the big picture here of, hey, we have this additional level we can ascend to, and the current now of we need to focus on today's game and win today's game. So I guess it's cautiously optimistic about the fate of the season is maybe the general theme here. They know that they're doing okay, but they can do better.
Yeah, let's start with the positives. Ike Irish, Auburn got off to a good start without him hitting pretty well. Obviously, when we had a shoulder issue at play, he's come back and has hit really well. They've got Cooper McMurray, who over the last 3 years has been about as consistent a hitter as you've seen in the SEC. The freshman class, we had Butch Thompson on before the season. He raved about it. I think it has been as advertised. From a lineup standpoint, and I know we talked pre-show, the issue's been the veterans haven't produced outside those guys the way they hoped. Is there enough here to piece it together in a league where you're seeing 1-9, everybody can hit? I mean, it's a beauty pageant. What do you think the outlook for the lineup is, maybe beyond Irish and McMurray? Because I just kind of take it for granted those two are going to hit.
Yeah, like there's, McMurray's going to figure it out. He's played too much baseball not to figure it out. I think the thing for Auburn is I feel comfortable that this lineup, when guys are dialed in, they can put up runs in every inning, right? And that's been the mentality of this team so far this year is it doesn't matter how big the deficit is, right? They can run on the board here in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, another in the sixth, and they can just slowly wear you down and grind you down. But without those guys hitting, I think the dimension that you kind of lose, not having Cooper McMurray at his, full powers and everything like that, what you kind of miss is that big inning element where you can go and you can put up a crooked number, a 5 spot in an inning. And so this team is like, they can compete. This lineup, as currently constructed and performing, can compete with anybody in the conference, but they don't have the firepower to come back late because they can't really generate that big inning. So
Yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic that they can stay where they are. They can be in solidly in that second tier all through the conference schedule. But can they get enough of those big innings, those big wins to get into the hosting conversation at the back end of that first tier? That's the real development I'm looking for, hopefully starting this weekend against Alabama.
Yeah, outside those two big names, who are the guys that you're circling? I know Cade Beyeu is a really talented young player.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we know the difficulty with the start of his season with him losing his mom. But Terrell, super talented kid. Chase Fralic, really talented freshman. Like who are the two or three guys that outside your top two that really need to click here?
It's Cade's one of those guys, right?
Yeah.
He's been dealing with a lot of adversity, as you mentioned. He right now is struggling a little bit with a sore shoulder. They're hopeful to clear him by this Friday. But when he's on, he adds both a power and a speed element that you don't see a ton in college baseball. My time working with the pros, I know one of the things you look for when it's like a hitter to be drafted, did he steal 20 bags or hit 20 home runs? Cade's that guy that can do both when he's fully healthy. But in conference play, batting 148, he only has 4 hits, 7 strikeouts, just hasn't really been fully healthy and effective. So we need him to do a little bit more. And then Eric Snow, actually, as your leadoff man, he doesn't strike out a lot. I think he has 5 strikeouts in all of conference play in 9 starts.
Man.
But he's also only batting 143. A lot of his getting on is via walk. He's drawn 6 walks. He's been hit by 2 other pitches. But it's a situation where he needs to consistently be getting on because he is the leadoff hitter in front of Irish. Like Ike Irish is going to hit. We all know he's going to hit, but he has to have guys on base so that he can drive them in. That's one of those things stopping them from hitting their offensive potential. Is just getting some of these guys like a Snow, like a Cade Beyeu, getting them to their full effectiveness. And so, yes, Cooper McMurray is going to figure it out. Ike Irish is going to hit. Your freshmen, your Chris Rembert, your Bub Terrell, your Chase Fralic, they're all doing great. Let's hope that maintains, right? They are true freshmen. It is a grind of an SEC schedule. Let's hope they keep that going. And so that's why you need some of these non-freshmen like a Snow and like a Cade Beyeu to step up and do a little bit more in conference play.
Yeah, Lucas Steele's another one too. I think hit maybe close to 30 home runs at Sanford. I may be getting my memory wrong. It's not really clicked like maybe you hope. That's another one I've kind of got my eye on. Where is that one at the moment?
So he started off as the DH to start the season, and to your point, wasn't clicking very well. And then when Irish went down, Steele was the first guy that they inserted into the lineup. And he's been doing okay in conference play. He's batting 276 right now, has a couple home runs. It doesn't feel like he's hitting for a ton of power, but he's giving consistently good at-bats. And I think if Lucas Steele can get to where, not necessarily that power that he showed at Sanford, I don't think this Auburn team necessarily has to have that. But if he can just keep that reliability, keep the lengthy at-bats, the quality at-bats, and help move the line along, that's going to go a big way. Right now, he's been carrying a lot of the weight where Cooper McMurray's not hitting and things like that. Lucas Steele's been doing that, but I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say I'd love some more power out of him. I think there's 2 home runs in 8 conference games. So we know he's a perfect example of this team, right? He's doing okay. He can do more. And I think that they all realize that, both him and the team realize that's something he can step up in the power production standpoint, more like what he did at Sanford.
Well, Lindsey, let's talk pitching. A highlight of the year, unquestionably, Sam Dutton, the Friday guy, who's not overpowering to the degree that some Friday night guys are, but the control, not a lot of free passes there, been excellent. Keeping the ball in the park to a reasonable degree, keeping the ball on the ground. What has Auburn done with him? Because I think at LSU he threw 28, 29 innings a year ago. I really wasn't sure that he could pitch this well, this long, but he has. What's Butch Thompson done that's worked there?
There's I think a few changes that they made. The first one was kind of to his pitch mix. They gave him a cutter, tried to just get him a little more confident in both having that and then having a second breaking ball so that he wasn't just in a reliever 2-pitch mix trying to go through a lineup twice or 3 times in some cases this year. But then also, having talked to him now half a dozen times as one of the veterans to come out to talk to the media, he's very even keeled, and he's kept that reliever mentality of not only attacking guys, but also flushing a bad outing or a bad inning or a bad pitch and moving on. And so that stabilizing presence where you can, no matter what, you can count on Sam Dutton to throw you 3 or 4 different pitches in the span of an outing, mix them all very well, and give you 4 or 5 innings where he's going to compete in every single inning. He's not going to give a pitch away, not going to give an at-bat away. And he's going to be very efficient. He's not going to waste a pitch trying to get you to chase something that's incredibly out of the zone. I think that's been really beneficial to this team, because last year, the big issue for the pitching, which was frankly dreadful last year, was they didn't have that weekend guy you can build around. And knowing you're going to get Sam Dutton on Friday night for 5 innings and you're going to still be in the game at the end of his 5 has allowed Auburn to try to build around him and center that whole pitching plan. So that stability, I think, as good as he's been on the mound, just the stability of the confidence has been the biggest thing for Auburn, simply because you can plan out a pitching plan now for the weekend, knowing you've got that on Friday.
Lindsey, the other thing that's a highlight of their pitching staff, they had a lot of old guys that pitch a lot of innings out of the bullpen or in or non-number one roles. Maybe that's midweek starter, maybe that's the occasional 3. Carson Myers being one of them, Cam Tilley being one, Parker Carlson. Add to that Alex Petrovic. You got Ryan Hetzler transferred. Was he the Creighton kid?
Mason Koch is the Creighton kid, and he's actually hopeful to make his debut this weekend against Alabama. He should be on the roster for the first time this weekend after dealing with an injury in fall.
Okay, that helps. Hetzler transferred from where?
Oh gosh, I knew it until you asked me.
Well, never.
That's
what. That's
what always happens. It was out west, which is obviously not the
Washington,
most helpful
maybe?
thing to me.
Cal
Baptist.
Either.
There you go.
Cal Baptist. Okay.
Took me a second there. Yeah.
Lot west of where you and I are. Either way.
Exactly.
Yeah. I to me, that's the thing. They've got a lot of those guys, and most SEC teams would kill to have that many guys out of the bullpen. And then you got some guys that have shown stuff. You got Christian Chatterton, who's really talented, but he's a freshman. I was impressed with Andres Alvarez when I saw him against Vandy a couple weekends ago. Cade Fisher has been really hit and miss. Feels Dylan Watts has been better than he's been. Armstrong's definitely been better than he's been. I feel like they've got 6 or 7 really good arms they can count on, and then 6 or 7 real wild cards from there. Is that fair?
I would say it's fair. And I think the issue that Auburn has found themselves in is, one, keeping the game contained enough, or the series contained enough, where you don't have to throw more than one of those wild cards in a game, right?
Yeah.
And getting the right order of those guys that you trust. Especially the last couple of weekends, they've had double headers on Saturdays because of weather. You're in a situation of you're trying to figure out, hey, who can we save in game 2 so that we have for game 3? And to your point, there's that core 5 guys who have all thrown 3-4 times in conference play. Myers was fantastic against Georgia last weekend. I think it was like 4 1/3 innings, 1 hit, double-digit strikeouts. Cam Tilley hasn't started a game this year, but he's been electric with that splitter, working in a long relief role. And they're fully comfortable piecing things together, right? If Cade Fisher, he's had some shorter starts, he had a 2-inning start, 2 1/3, things like that. But if they have to go to 2 or 3 guys, they're comfortable with that. They feel like, to your point, they have enough guys to do that. But the reason that they are comfortable mixing and matching every weekend is because they know Sam Dutton's going to give them 5 in game 1. And they're trying to get to the same point of reliability with Sam Dutton they're trying to get to that same Sam Dutton point of reliability with Cade Fisher. The transfer from Florida, the lefty, he's been going deeper every week. And the goal has been for his stuff to maintain as he gets deeper into the game every week. And they think that they're on the verge of doing that. So the hope is with Cade Fisher that they can get him, to that 5-inning kind of limit that they have with Sam Dutton, or at least that 5-inning minimum. And if they do that, then I think all the arms they have that you pointed out really becomes just a strength of this team that nobody else in the conference can really match them with over the course of a weekend.
What's happened with Hayden Murphy, too? That's one where I had high hopes after how he threw in the Cape. And Butch, we had him on the show, talked him up for good reason. What's gone wrong there?
He also added a cutter, and it's for some reason it's not quite stuck with him like a lot of the other guys have. He's kind of fallen back into some of the old habits, and we've seen it's really been the control. Butch's big thing this year, and to his credit, the whole team has bought in. We've heard this from players, pregame, postgame, everything is about throwing strikes, your strike percentage, not giving up free passes. And Hayden's just really kind of struggled. He's thrown 6 2/3 innings with 5 walks. And this year, more so than any other year, that is just a death sentence to your playing time. Like Butch Thompson wants you to throw strikes, don't give out free passes, and just be competing in every, especially with the way the zone is in the SEC this year, how it's just so tight east to west and you can't get anything on the edges. That's kind of been the struggle. A lot of what he does is an east-west kind of game. And so he struggled to adjust to the new pitch. He struggled to adjust to the strike zone. And so because of that, they've kind of backed off his role a little bit, trying to get him some confidence so that they can maybe bring him back out later. We've seen Auburn do this in the past. They call it putting a guy in the garage, right?
Yeah.
Just they kind of put him to the side and then they pull him out later. Tweaked mechanics, maybe a new pitch, and he's just better. He finally got into the game against Georgia. It's the first weekend game he had since I think since the Vanderbilt series. Didn't record an out. So still a work in progress.
Easy to say throw strikes, but man, it is hard to pitch in the game. I mean, you catch the edge of a plate, the conditions right now, you're seeing 400-something foot home runs to the opposite field. I mean, I saw a kid, I think at Florida State, hit one oppo over a 55-foot scoreboard, freshman. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm just, because that's the thing. Like, throwing strikes has always been a recipe to success, but you can throw a good pitch these days and that gets hit out. I'm just curious. Butch Thompson is a pitching guy. Like, has he talked about how you deal with pitching that in these conditions?
He's danced around it. He hasn't come out explicitly and said, here's what I think about this. But it's clear that he's not a fan of where the game has gone with just how severe offense is. I mean, I've heard people in the press box make comments about gorilla ball, right? Kind of bringing that old chestnut back. But I do know that his whole thought process behind some of these guys and what he tells some of these guys is, at this point in where college baseball is as a game, these hitters are going to get theirs, right? They're like, you're going to give up, especially going to Georgia last weekend. Like, you're going to give up big hits. Your job is to minimize how often it happens and minimize their ability to get extra runs out of it. We'd rather give up 3 solo shots than 3 3-run homers. And that's been how the Auburn team has played. They don't want to walk guys. They don't want to give extra runners away, so that when you give up that homer or you give up 2 homers, they're both solo shots. And look at Georgia last weekend. That team scored, I want to say, the previous 2 weekends against Florida and Kentucky, it was like 12 and 13 runs a game. Auburn holds them to 8 runs a game, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in modern college baseball against the number 2 team in the country, that's a good outing. And then, to our point from earlier in the podcast, the offense doesn't score enough and they drop all 3 of those games when probably 2 of them were winnable late, including one where they went to extras. So yeah, Butch is very much just, hey, minimize the damage when that kind of stuff happens. Throw strikes, give the awesome defense behind you an opportunity to make plays. And they absolutely have done that as well.
All right, huge series for Auburn coming up with Alabama. What are you watching for in this one?
I want to see how that pitching plan comes together. I think one of the big things we noticed in the Georgia series, and I talked to some folks over at Georgia to kind of get some confirmation of this, is their hitters acted like the vulnerable moment in the game was when Auburn switched pitchers. The first couple pitches, they were giant hacks every single pitch because they knew for some reason that guy's not settled in the game when he first comes in. So how Auburn handles the pitching changes. Do they get guys up earlier? Do they make the change as a batter earlier than they think they should? Because that's really been where Auburn struggled, right? Christian Chatterton's had some short outings early in games, right? He hasn't made it out of the first inning in the last 2 starts. And that's a similar situation of he's not locked in and dialed in early. So I'm watching how those pitching changes work. And then I'm watching to see what the lineup does with runners in scoring position. I feel like that's been a little bit of a weakness, is getting the hit. They've gotten the balls in play. They're not always getting the hit. Some of that's going to normalize out. That's just kind of good luck, bad luck, right? But watching this Auburn team, Butch has made a point to drill into these guys. The first 2 strikes in an at-bat are yours. The third strike is Auburn's. And so when you get 2 strikes, you've got to shorten up. You've got to put the ball in play. You've got to move the runner over. And a lot of guys are trying to do that, and it's not always successful. So that's where I want to see improvement. I feel like Alabama's pitching staff, you can score runs on them. I feel like you can get hits on them. But can you string together 2 or 3 or 4 consecutive hits, or get that one big hit to get those runs? I think that's kind of what I'm watching for Auburn this weekend.
That's interesting to hear you say that, because I haven't heard shorten your swing and approach with 2 strikes in a while. It's different, but I mean, this is got one of the lower strikeout rates of any team in the league, maybe the lowest in terms of offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's and when you watch, it's at times very, very clear that these guys understand, hey, I'm going to swing at the first pitch because that's mine, and it's a G-hack. They're trying to get that home run. But then later on, and I think Ike Irish is the best visual indicator of this, he has one of the widest stances I've ever seen with 2 strikes, right? Virtually no foot stride or anything, because he's choked up. He's trying to shoot the ball the other way. And it feels, this is a little anecdotal. I talked to the analytics team, but still a little anecdotal. It feels like the opposite field hits by Auburn, just shortening up and just getting a bat on a ball and putting it in play, have been so much more frequent this year than in previous years, because they've always kind of believed, hey, after 2 strikes, you've got to shorten up and do things. But they've really pushed it into this group of guys, and especially the freshmen. They've really bought into that theory. And having a switch hitter and catcher Chase Fralic doesn't hurt, because he's comfortable hitting either way. But they've all done really well at that this year.
Lindsey, it's been a lot of fun talking baseball with you. Love your passion for the game. Tell folks where they can find your work and what you've got coming up.
Again, I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball, kind of the hub for everything there. The Barn Baseball Show, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. It's me, Sonny DeShera, and Brad Law. If you're an Atlanta Braves fan, I'm sorry right now. But you can find all of that at Braves Today and the Braves Today podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. You
know what they say about you? You're a big baseball guy.
Big Lindsey Crosby, big baseball guy. Good friend of mine says it's baseball's Lindsey Crosby. That's what he says.
Yeah. I love it, man. Man after my own heart. Hey, man, thanks for joining us. I know we're going to take the opportunity to have you on again. God bless you. Have a great and safe weekend where weather is a big deal across the South, and appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
All right. He's Lindsey Crosby. I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 16. God bless you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.